bigger they are, the more backers come to fund it. We're here to give you our Kickstarter Pickstarters, big and small, for September 16th, 2019. We're going to start off with Pandasaurus' alternate timeline space game, Godspeed. This game takes place during the heat of the space race in the 1960s and proposes that the moon landing is actually a distraction for the actual big discovery, a new planet, where each nation is actually trying to secretly conquer it for themselves. This game takes place in 3 phases: an event phase, a bidding phase, and then a worker placement phase. Now, the event phase has to be dealt with your workers, as well as the bidding is also using your workers. So it becomes a balance of keeping your workers to the end, so certain spaces can only be used for certain workers, like the biologist or the general. But maybe you want to use those numbers also to get better resources or to deal with the event that comes up at the beginning. It's those simple things in bidding in order to get victory points along a track, which is where most of your points come from. 4 different tracks as well, so maybe you specialize in one or you take a more balanced approach. This definitely is a very big game. I've heard a lot of interesting talk about it, and the idea that your workers are simply just, placing workers. They're also your, in essence, money, I guess, so to speak, in the bidding and dealing with other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, the theme is really fun and cool. I think it's a really unique, interesting take. The video they had for this one was fun as well. And, based on... They did Dinosaur Island, and I feel like...
There actually is, I don't know if you
right,
looked.
there's a promo.
There's a little mini expansion for Dinosaur Island, so you can add space raptors.
But I think based on the strength of that as like, another worker placement game from them, I'm pretty confident that they'll be able to shoot this one out of the water as well. It looks cool.
No, I'm definitely curious about it. It is $70, so it's on the higher end of the spectrum. You mentioned Dinosaur Island, but I feel like Pandasaurus has been doing really well with games recently. I mean, even we didn't like it too much, but The Mind was very popular as well. So they've gone
right.
across the whole spectrum in terms of smaller games and larger games. So they've raised the bar to me what I expect from them. So that could be good or bad for them. I don't know.
Right.
Once again, this is $70. It does have the expansion you can back for Dinosaur Island 2, which of course I already backed. And if you don't just want that, you can actually just back for the expansion. So either way, you can either get your little stuff for Dinosaur Island, get the whole new game, or get everything. Why not?
Now we begin an onslaught of expansions to existing games, starting with Detective City of Angels Smoke and Mirrors. This is a new expansion for Detective City of Angels from Van Ryder Games, which came out this year, but was kickstarted last year. And it's a mystery-solving game for 1 to 5 players. You travel around a board trying to solve a certain mystery that has a book with characters, and you can interview them and discover clues and evidence and try to solve the case. You can play it in solo mode, or you can play it competitively as the standard way, or cooperatively. So there's multiple ways to enjoy it. This new expansion is 4 brand new cases for the game, and each of them has different themes, but all based in this general noir detective vibe like the originals. I think one of them has at least one of them has some returning characters from older ones. And what's different about these is they said, first of all, they're going to be some of the most complicated and more involved cases of all the ones that they've done so far. And there's going to be some more twists to them. In the original game, you need to just figure out a motive, a suspect, and a weapon. I think that's the 3 things.
Yes.
And in this one, you may have to figure out more than that to solve the case. You may need to figure out who were the accomplices that were involved, for example. So your job isn't maybe as clear-cut as it was before.
Now, we're planning to do a review of this eventually, but as you said, there's all the different modes, so we're trying to get through all of them together. Like, I just finished my own solo mode. I'm going to try playing the Chisel, which is sort of like one of the things when you do the 1v-all.
Right.
He's the...
One player's like the GM who controls all the mysteries.
And he is trying to win as well, so he's not going to play. And it's definitely really fun and new take, I think, on the whole mystery solving mode. And another thing we should point out in the base, I don't know how this is gonna, I haven't looked at this one, but they do have like, these are easier cases, these are intermediate, these are hard too. So if you want to introduce people slowly into it if they're new to playing either the roles of detective or the Chisel, you can choose an easier case. Or if you really wanted to, you can play cooperatively as well, if that's more of your bag.
So the Smoke and Mirrors expansion is $35, and you can check it out. If you haven't gotten the original, of course, you can back that version plus the first expansion with this campaign as well.
We are returning to Everdell with two new expansions, Spirecrest and Belfair. In Spirecrest, you are actually going to go out and explore the mountains. This will have you send out rabbit travelers, a new meeple, to explore these mountains, get new resources and allies, but it also adds weather that will come down from the mountains and hit your town. So you're going to also have to prepare for the new environmental changes. Belfair, on the other hand, is having you celebrate the anniversary of the town of Everdell, which will add, of course, new cards, another new board. Everdell, this is the 4th expansion, if you don't count like small things in terms of boxes. We have played the base. You have not played, but I have the Pearl Brook expansion, which I have had. I don't know if you know, the Pearl Brook adds onto the left of the board. This mountain one's going to actually add to the bottom of the board. The other one also adds to the top. So you actually sort of just grow this board out.
That's cool.
And another cool thing, I can't remember which one it comes with, but you actually, because if you remember, there's like the mouse meeples or the hedgehog meeples. Mm-hmm. They actually not only are going to have player powers now, but also a board. And that board is just fun. I can put my stupid things in there.
No, I really like the addition of player powers. I think that's a nice touch.
One thing I'm curious, because I did play Pearl Brook, only the single player, so this is a game where you're like, there's 10 things I want to do and I have 4 turns to do them. Mm-hmm. So I wonder how adding this stuff is going to deal with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I do really enjoy the game. It's definitely a heavy resource management game because that's one of the big things you have. You feel like you have so little actions to do so much what you want to do. How do you maximize your efficiency?
And I know this one I saw, it's like extremely funded, like so much money already. So clearly people are not tired of it. People are still hungry for more Everdell stuff.
So it sounds like you will not need to worry whether this is going to be funded or not, and if it's going to hit those stretch goals. Now, there's, of course, a lot of different things you could back, whether you just want the 2 new expansions or all the stuff, the whole kit and caboodle, including they have a lot of the smaller promo stuff there as well. So I would definitely take a look and see to get what you want. But if you're just looking to get the 2 newest expansions, that's $64. So let's see how you want to return to Everdell.
We've got more colorful critters for you in the Root role-playing game from Magpie Games, based on the original Root board game from Leader Games. This one puts players right into the world of Root with the Eerie Dynasty and the Marquise de Cat and other fun animal creatures fighting over control of the woodland area. Players are going to be taking on the roles of the vagabonds. They will each be a vagabond, and they are kind of the rogues of the world. They're doing their own thing. So you might decide to align with one or more factions, or work all by yourself. It's up to you. You're essentially in there while a game of Root is going on around you. So as you play, you'll be traveling through different clearings, meeting villagers, going on quests, and potentially affecting the war at large as it happens. It's based on the Powered by the Apocalypse system, if you're familiar with that. It uses D6s, and it seems like a fun adventure, whether you're familiar with Root or you're just looking for something in the vein of kind of a Redwall, Mice and Mystics, fantasy animals type of theme. If you haven't seen the artwork of the board game, and of course they use the same exact style for the role-playing game, is just gorgeous. And there's also some deluxe books that are like, they're really nice looking, like super classy.
I mean, when we first played the game, I got the chance to be Vagabond. I remember thinking like, it just feels like I am a protagonist in video games. So this just seems like
right.
the perfect next step. And yeah, I'm very excited to be able to try this out.
It makes sense to pick them too. They didn't come up with asymmetric rules for role players.
What's also, I think, really fun about this idea is like you could play the board game a couple times with people, and then when you go to this, everyone sort of already has a feel of the world. Mm-hmm. They're like, all right, there's this war, the village, and these are the bird people, these are the cats. You know, so that really helps people sort of get into the environment of the world instead of you having to be like, all right, here's my huge map. Right. This is what the Dragonborn are like here. These are
right. But if you do want huge maps, they have some that they're offering you. So there's actually 2 books. One's a core book, one has some extra stuff. You can get both of them as a PDF for $20. You can move up the tier list, and for $40 you'll get 1 hardcover and 1 PDF, and it goes on depending on what you want. So take a look at it. It's Root, the role-playing game.
From Penguin and Panda Productions, we have Manchu KO. This game takes place in China in 1932, where a new government has disarmed and taken over your village. You are the head of different martial art houses, masters, and your goal is to not only help rebuild the village and help families that are in need, but also train your students in secret at night. So the way the game actually works is you actually will have a bunch of different workers. They're not your workers, but they're sort of the villagers. So they come in different colors. So the idea is you actually place workers maybe in different combinations. Maybe space works one way, but if you put the blue worker there, it works differently, or maybe multiple workers there will act differently as well. So there's a bit more worker management instead of just simply placing a worker on a spot. During the day, you're going to be gathering resources and also helping out villages, while at night you'll also be training your own students in order to make them ready to prepare to deal with these troops, because as you go on throughout the game, they may notice your actions and may be a little worried of you getting too much power. That worker placement thing I mentioned is really, I think, what draws my attention to this game. Because usually, you're like, here are your green workers, here are your blue workers, and you just sort of try to hog space. It's not really about, okay, this worker I want to try to get in this combination, and sort of a shared worker pool.
Okay, so we have a shared theme this week, a little bit of worker placement games that
worker placement and expansions
that are different. Oh yeah, that's the other one. But our new ones are all about worker placement, baby.
So for $49, you can try out this new worker placement game from Penguin and Panda. Love, two great black and white creatures.
Yeah, where's the zebra in there?
That's for the expansion.
Okay, makes sense.
But this was Manchu KO.
Heart, The City Beneath is another role-playing game, and we're not letting you get out of this episode without another, technically, sequel to another game, because this is actually in the same universe as an existing RPG called Spire from the same creators. And whereas Spire took place on the surface of the world, in this one, players are delving underneath into the heart. There actually is a place called the Heart. You'll figure out all of that kind of lore, and there's a lot of interesting, weird lore in this game. So you're adventuring, you're dungeon crawling in this dark underworld. There are some very cool classes, including the Junk Mage, who siphons energy from other dimensional beings, and there's also one that can travel between different planes and talk to the dead, called the Dead Walker. So some really cool, different stuff, not your typical fantasy classes, and also some very disturbing sounding enemies, including the mirror spiders that I don't want to find out what that means. So some really neat stuff there, and it is one that's, from what I've heard, this one and the original, they're both more on the stressful side. It's almost more of like a horror RPG in some ways. But another thing that's really cool about it, I need to mention, it comes with a blank grid map, and the idea is that as players play, the GM and players together, there's a little bit of a co-op storytelling element. Actually, you map out what this looks like. It's not set in stone, so the GM kind of decides. It actually comes with like stickers and stuff, and you can draw in as they explore what they discover. So there's a free form element to it that is cool.
I think that sounds really cool, and I do actually really like the more stressful RPGs. I think they've been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
When done right. I screwed up and gave too much power to someone. But I am a little disappointed by Junk Mage. When I first heard that, I was like, it's just some guy who's like a really bad artificer and just like puts like a bunch of junk. They're like, look what I made. I put a toaster with a clock.
That's another thing, yeah, two different things. So Hearts, you can get the PDF version for $19 or the hardcover for $44. Take a look.
So a lot of big picks this week. Another one I want to point out is from Renegade Studios, and that's the Power Rangers one, because it's an expansion for a bunch of new products. The reason I didn't choose it as a pick is because we just decided to make a whole new review on the base game. So you can actually check out that and see our crits and misses and see if I can convince you to back this project.
We also put up a preview video for another one called Knights of the Hound Table. It's got some dogs in there, some other goofy stuff. So take a look at that in the midst of all these giant expansion Kickstarters that for some reason all decided to drop the same week. It was really crazy this week. Tell us what you're backing. Which of these are you expanding, or maybe you're taking this opportunity to pick up something that you missed the first time around. Talk to us in the comments section down below. Till next time, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
This has been Roll for Crits, Kickstarter, Pickstarter.
Catch the latest from Roll for Crit by liking and subscribing, and don't forget to support us on Patreon.
Don't get analysis paralysis. Just click those buttons. Help us out.